smoke in the auditorium. Charlie Brown, Charlie Brown, he's a clown. That Charlie Brown, he's gonna get caught. Just you wait and see. Everybody always picking on me. That's him on his knees. I know that's him yelling 7 come 11 down in the boys' gym. Charlie Brown, Charlie Brown, he's a clown. That Charlie Brown, he's gonna get caught. Just you wait and see. Why is everybody always picking on me? Who's always writing on the wall? Who's always grooving in the hall? Who's always throwing spitball? Guess who? Yeah, you. He walks in the classroom cool and slow. Who calls the English teacher Daddy-O? Charlie Brown, Charlie Brown, he's a clown. That Charlie Brown, he's gonna get caught. Just you wait and see. Why is everybody always picking on me? Walks in the classroom cool and slow. Who calls the English teacher Daddy-O? Charlie Brown, Charlie Brown, he's a clown. That Charlie Brown, he's gonna get caught. Just you wait and see. Why is everybody always picking on me?
Hello, 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 hello. Everybody hear me okay?
You better take it from me. That boy is like a disease. You're running, you're trying to hide, and you're wondering why you can't get free. He's like a curse, he's like a drug. You get addicted to his love. You wanna get out, but he's holding you down 'cause you can't live without him one more touch. He's a good time cowboy, Casanova, leaning against
Well, hello, Asia. I wish that was my voice. I'm not monetized. You got time. Go for it, girl. We're just picking up the mood a little bit about what I want to cover. Casanova is up against the record machine. A good snack, cool drink of water. Sky's a snake with blue eyes, and the moon comes out at night. Better run for your life. All right, Petey. Here it comes. You ready for it? Please don't let there be an ad. It's gonna be an ad. Hold on. I got this.
Delicious with Kellogg's Special K.
Always been confused by those commercials. Wake up. Here you go, Petey. Oh, that's a good one, too. You got time, Cushy? Just filled my cup to the brim. And it wasn't with brim. Me and Romeo ain't never been friends.
Can't you see how much I really love you? Sing it to you time and time again. Oh, Casanova. Casanova. Oh, Casanova. Casanova.
All right, we'll finish playing that one here in just a little bit. Y'all know what time of year it is. Golly bum, I love the month of October. Got a birthday. I get to change my identity at least 2 days out of the year. Golly. Now, flies on the coastline, you don't need to be dozing on and off, because I wanted to share something with y'all that I have discovered in my little research endeavors. I was born in 1974. I don't care to tell my age because I'm proud to be how old I am. And I stumbled across this article on Murderpedia, the Encyclopedia of Murders. And I was reading this article. Okay, let me pull this one up. Put a 1 in the chat if you've ever heard of the Casanova Killer. Ooh, sounds like somebody's into those little true crime serial killer things going on here. I like it. I like my audience. When we share the similar interest, there we go. Now we're talking. Well, the Casanova Killer's real name was Paul John Knowles. And he was born in 1946. And he went on a killing spree over a scorned love affair. He had already been arrested at the age of 19, and this was in 1965, and he spent roughly 6 months of each year thereafter in jail after committing a crime of burglary and auto theft, amongst other convictions. So while he was serving his time at Rayford Penitentiary in California, he was in the process of getting a divorce from this woman named Angela Kovic. And she visited him in prison, and it went on from there. Well, people came. Okay, so let me back up just a little bit. So while he's in prison, He's getting a divorce. I mean, he meets this woman. I'm sorry, he was not getting a divorce. He was meeting this, he was conversing with this woman who was a divorcee. Sorry, I'll clarify that. By the name of Angela Kovic. Well, Angela decided to accept his proposal of marriage, but she had went to a psychic, and the psychic told her that she had foreseen her getting in a relationship with a new dangerous man in her life. So this was in May of 1974. So she went on and she crawfished out of the relationship. She dumped him. So then Knowles, he went out and went out on a killing spree. He killed 3 people on the streets of San Francisco when he was released from prison. But none of this has been verified. This was provided in his confession. And we'll get into that just in a little bit. So I'm going to scale it down a little bit. I wanted to share a documentary that I had found that was produced by Alive 11. And they have a lot of information on that page. So in order to keep me from being struck, I'm probably going to make a lot of pauses, and we're probably going to have a lot of commercials because that's just the way YouTube is until you're monetized. So I'm going to jump into this. I'm going to invite someone up. I'll put my StreamYard out there, my link out, and then I'm going to share my screen and let y'all watch this documentary with me, because it has some very interesting information. And I'm going to ask that you not mention anyone's name. I'm not going to ask you to comment anything with any. Just let the information as it's resonate and just sit with you for a minute. You are definitely going to find this documentary most interesting. Now, I can't see chat, so let me get in where I can see chat. I could play music, but it's just going to mess me up. Bear with me. I'm going there. The wind is blowing awful here, and I have some little hangy-majiggers on my porch in my office, and it is scaring the bejeebus out of me like somebody's walking up on my porch. And me doing this, it's probably going to make me a little bit more skittish, but I'm not easily scared. All right, so now then. Hi, Sapphire. Hello, darling. Not going to be able to, well, I can see chat now. Just bear with me a minute. And we're going to share my screen. Share screen. Go here and go here. Now, if it sounds robotic, let me know, because I've been having some difficulty. And if I do have difficulty, I'll just scale it down for you. Whoa, just be careful. Let this load. Really? Really? Come on now. Looks like I'm going to have trouble again today, guys. Every time. Every time. Got to be freaking kidding me.
He had eyes cold as steel. It's like he was looking right through you. He was a con artist, smooth talker. He'd con you out of your wallet, your watch, your car.
There was nothing that would make you think he was a killer. He wanted to be a famous mass murderer.
He killed men, women, boys, girls. He didn't discriminate. He decided to kill you if you didn't have it.
Just about everywhere he went, he left a body.
The Casanova killer. I fell in love with him for maybe an instant.
He didn't want to admit that he was gay, and he killed them.
He killed 33 or 35 people. We were able to document 18.
I'm almost certain there are other victims out there. He made tapes of his escapades.
Thousands of Camp Lejeune Marines and their families in North Carolina have suffered severe illness and even death.
The year was 1974. Richard Nixon became the first.
I was hoping that it wouldn't buffer because I did a test run earlier and it played fine.
U.S. president forced to resign. Stephen King published his debut novel, and I Shot the Sheriff was on the top of the charts. 1974 also marked the start of serial killer season in America. But this is the serial killer story that hasn't been told. Not like this. Paul John Knowles, PJK, the man dubbed the Casanova Killer. Some describe him as charming, attractive, and intelligent, for sure. It was during the summer of 1974 that Paul John Knowles crisscrossed the country, stealing cars. He'd rape, strangle, and slay victims. He swiped their credit cards and their prized possessions. Then, he'd take on the identity of his victims.
I worked for people who paid and were professional criminals. Knowles was a criminal, a repeated criminal. Should have been a professional criminal, but he was an amateur.
This is John Paul Knowles, his attorney that's talking.
He didn't use curse words. He wasn't rude. He was polite. He was sort of passive to some extent. There was nothing that would make you think he was a killer. When I first met him as a regular, he was just a loser, a guy that can't stay out of jail.
Paul John Knowles wanted infamy, but notoriety never followed. PJK failed. No one talks about PJK when they mention Ted Bundy, John Wayne Gacy, or the Son of Sam. But this serial killer knew his fate, and he planned for it by recording confessions of his killings.
He was coming back from Key West or somewhere in the Keys, and he calls me, and when he gets to Miami, and he says he's got to talk to me. It's important. He's got to talk to me. And I met him sometime around 9 o'clock at night at a bar, and that's where he tells me he's a mass murderer. Right away. I said, okay. He said, I'm a mass murderer. Brace yourself. And I said, oh, okay. And I laughed at him, I think. He had nothing in his background that would, reflect a person who would go around killing people. I said, what do you want to do with this? You want to surrender, go to jail? I'll help you get, turn you in. No, I don't want to do that. I want to have it documented. I want a book. I want some record made.
After 5 months on the run, the alleged Casanova was shot and killed by police. But PJK kept a log, recording the details of his murders on secret tapes left to his lawyer. He claimed to take 35 lives. But here's the thing. Investigators can only account for 18 deaths, and at least one victim got away.
My name is Barbara, maybe Abel.
Okay, I'm going to pause it right there for just a second. Okay, so what you just heard in this documentary was the attorney of Paul John Knowles. He pointed out that he was just charming, attractive, intelligent. So we got a general idea of who and what kind of person Mr. Knowles is at this point. So now we're going into one of his victims and one of her stories. So I'm going to remute and hit play again.
My maiden name was Maybe, and I married an Abel.
Barbara's twin sister, Beverly, suffered from cerebral palsy. The two women were living together when a serial killer showed up in their West Palm Beach home.
If I would have met Paul John Knowles at a nightclub, I would have gone out with him. He was very good looking. For an instant, I thought it was my ex-husband. I only marry good-looking guys. And here I am in the same house that the kidnapping happened. So in 1974, on November the 14th, the day I'm never going to forget as long as I live, I knew something was wrong. And he said, "Don't turn around or I'll shoot you."
Okay, so now this is Barbara Maybe, and she has a sister who is disabled. She has cerebral palsy. So she is inviting Mr. Knowles into her home, a very charismatic man, and she comes home and this is what she discovers. Now, if you're very sensitive to this subject matter, I'm going to ask that you mute. I'm not trying to trigger or traumatize anyone or re-victimize anyone by me sharing my content, but I'm trying to make the point that there has been centuries and centuries of serial killers, and this kind of plays in the model of profiling. So I'm going to go ahead and continue now. I'm going to mute out and start the video again.
My friend used to pay $100 for car insurance. Now look how much he pays. Most insurance.
And of course, I decided I'd turn around. And I couldn't believe what I did next. Walked him all the way through the house, this little cute house, and something made me go into the bedroom where Beverly was. She was tied up and with a sheet, and she had a gag over her face, and blood was coming out of the gag. I'm sorry. This maniac's in the bedroom with me, and he just finished tying up my son in the other bedroom, and I said, "Get the gag from out of her mouth. My God, she's got cerebral palsy. She's handicapped. What did you do to my sister?" I said, "Did you rape her?" And he says, "I didn't do anything. I didn't hurt her." And I said, "If you raped her," I said, "I'm going to kill you." He said, "That's my sister." And I knelt down beside the bed and talked to her, and I said, "We're okay." I said, "I'll give him the money and the keys to the car, and then he can go, okay?" So she just nodded her head yes, and I kissed her. And he wanted to take me on I-95 or the Turnpike or wherever he wanted to take me. We went from West Palm Beach all the way up to Fort Pierce, which is at least 60, 70 miles up north. He gets.
Okay, so now we have this charming man in this woman's home who has tied up her disabled sister and her son that's also in the home. And now he's kidnapped her. They're in her vehicle. This is all happening in Florida, and they're heading north. Again, I'm not trying to traumatize anyone. But please, I'm asking you to pay close attention to what Mr. Knowles' behaviors are. And just kind of keep it in the back of your mind as you watch on how some things have kind of surfaced here in the last couple of years about how these people and crimes are being committed. That's all I'm asking, is just pay real close attention to the content and the behaviors of this man.
A motel room, and we go and he said, just pretend like we're married. And it didn't even cross my mind that I would be raped. He had raped me repeatedly over and over, but it wasn't rape in my mind because the man wasn't normal. He was not normal that way sexually. It wasn't like a real man. He wasn't like a real man. He was trying but couldn't do anything. Impotent. When he tied me up, he always made it real loose. And then the last time, he didn't know that he left the keys on the nightstand. He didn't know that he did that. He just locked the door and went his way. And so I started sawing my sheet thing off, and I got myself loose. It wasn't even 15 minutes later, and the whole world was right there by my side. God bless them. I know what the paparazzi is now for all these stars. It's like, it was that bad. Then they take me like I'm a criminal, and I go to the Fort Pierce police station. I'm thinking, oh, I need to save him because he's really, really sick. Thinking he only killed like one person. So, whoa, did I even, I didn't know. I was a copywriter. I know that's what saved my life. I had no idea how many he had murdered. He tried to keep telling me, and I wasn't listening. I mean, who wants to hear that? And I was telling him, like, why do you want to write a book? And he wanted to be famous. Famous for what? Murdering a person? I fell in love with him for maybe an instant. I did whatever I had to do.
Kind of makes you wonder, don't it? So she did what she had to do. So here she is. She's found. She's got all these people supporting her, and then all of a sudden she's the one being treated like a criminal. Exactly right, me. Yes, it's like Stockholm syndrome. Now, something that I learned when I was working in law enforcement and corrections, one of the things that they taught us is that if you're ever held hostage or you're in a situation of that level of vulnerability, to remain compliant. And they also told us in training that when they come in to rescue you, they're going to treat you the same as everyone else. So that was a hard pill to swallow until it was explained to me. You have to treat everyone the same, whether you're a victim or not. And I can talk about that later on, about my own personal experiences and knowing exactly what that feeling is about, but I'm not going to cover it today. But this video, it's really a telltale. So I'm going to go ahead and continue the video and let y'all consume the information.
Barbara gave PJK an 8-hour head start. he took off in her car. What Barbara experienced was PJK's signature brutality: kidnapping, rape, torture, and then stealing her possessions. The only difference? Barbara lived. PJK's first known murder was 65-year-old Alice Curtis in Jacksonville. He forced his way in her home and gagged her, just like he'd done to Barbara. But Alice choked to death. He killed twice more near Jacksonville, strangled a woman in Atlantic Beach, killed a teenager in Bibb County, Georgia, and strangled a 24-year-old in Musella with a telephone cord. One of his most merciless acts of rage happened in Milledgeville, Georgia. A father and daughter in an absolute nightmare.
Worked a lot of murders, but that was the bloodiest crime scene I'd ever seen. I can still see the blood. I can see it in the bed. I can see him with all his stab wounds. And I was asking the coroner when we were at the funeral home during the autopsy, what were all those marks? Come to find out, he had stabbed him so many times that he broke the tips off the scissors. And those were the stab marks from where the tips were broken on the scissors. He was stabbed so many times, he bled through the mattress.
He strangled the daughter.
So now with James Josie, one of the detectives, and Randall Savage, one of the journalists, guys, I'm going to put you on a brief hold. I think I've got a tornado going on here. Just bear with me for a moment. Let me check on things. I'll be right back. I do have a tornado going on out here. If I lose power, guys, I'll continue and pick this up later. Oh, this is interesting. This is very interesting. Okay, well, I'll keep going. All right, so we've got Randall Savage, who was the journalist that was reporting on all this. I'm just as safe as I'm ever going to be, so no, I'm in a little building here between two huge concrete buildings, and unless it blows the roof off, I'll be fine. So I'm going to go ahead and pick up where we left off. And this is Randall Savage talking about the brutal murder of a man and his daughter that Knowles went in on.
And I believe they said that he tried to have sex with the body after she was killed. It was a gruesome thing. Mr. Carr and Mr. Knowles met at a bar here in Macon, and they went to his home in Milledgeville. And nobody knows the real reason. There's some speculation, but nobody knows the speculation. It might have been a gay encounter.
But he didn't want to admit that he was gay. So he killed him. It's just like committing a burglary. He commits a burglary, and therefore, when he commits the burglary, he has to kill the witness. So if you have a homosexual act, then he has to kill the homosexual. One thing the women said, he was a dud. A big, handsome guy, one could wine and dine you, could get you into the bedroom, but then he couldn't perform. I didn't think he was a Casanova killer. I just thought he was a murderer.
That's super overpriced, but whatever. Can you just buy it? We've been shopping all day.
Oh, so,
But the name Casanova Killer stuck anyway.
So what we have then is we've got a killer who is afraid to admit that he's gay. Because in the beginning, when the video started, it said that he would rape and kill and murder, and it didn't matter if it was men, women, or children. So we've got a kind of a pattern going here. And it looks like the storm is kind of calming down a little bit. So let's hope for the best. All right, so let's go on now that we're creating this pattern. Oh no, what did I miss in chat? I'm sorry. Well, my town is getting pummeled right now, and where I'm at is underneath two very large oak trees. And if either one of these jokers fall, I'm stuck like Chuck. But we're getting hit pretty hard with a storm right now. The wind's calmed down, but the rain's coming down pretty hard. So let's get back to our video. Everybody just stay calm. Just stay calm. A fluid murder? I think so. I think that's exactly what we're dealing with here. Well, I appreciate that, D-Froggies. I just wanted to cover this.
After the car murders, PJK would slip up. He had ditched a car from one of his previous victims, a Chevy. When investigators found it, they learned the Casanova killer had not covered his tracks. He left a paper trail of his deadly path.
He killed people all over the country: California, Nevada, Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, Connecticut. What he would do is, when he would kill somebody, he would take their vehicle, along with their credit cards and things like that. He would use their credit cards for a while, and then he'd kill somebody else and get their credit cards, their car.
It was mid-November when a state trooper pulled Knowles over. Not wasting any time, Knowles took the trooper hostage. He flagged down another driver, James Meyer, and then he took off with both men, using Meyer's Ford as a getaway car. This was the beginning of the end for PJK.
They stop at a gas station. Knowles gets out, and the police officer, Campbell, and the other victim are sitting in the car and don't do anything. It's a four-door sedan. They don't make any effort. They make no effort to get out. They don't call for help. They do nothing. The next day, Knowles is driving the car himself. There's nobody else in the car. A police officer spots the car. They set up a roadblock. When they try to stop him, Knowles smashes into the roadblock, but he's able to get out of the car, and he runs into the woods. And Knowles says, "I give up." He said, "I'm too tired to fight." And he gives up. He's bleeding. He's upset. He's injured. He's got a scratch on his leg, and his face is cut, and he's beat. So the murderer gives up.
Police had their mass murderer, but not his final victims. Still missing, Trooper Campbell and James Meyer. PJK wasn't talking, but he recorded confessions. Now, only one man controlled PJK's diary, and that man, attorney Sheldon Yavitz, was keeping those tapes locked away.
So this man has went on a murder spree. He's kidnapped a man, and he's also kidnapped a Florida State police officer. What am I missing in chat, darlings? Oh, May, bless your heart. Yeah, well, kind of the point of my title today, darling. The highwayman, the traveler, the highway runs. Wow. Just asking you to take a few notes here. All right, so let's get back to our video. We've got a killer who is afraid to admit that he's gay. He Just asking you to take a few notes because this gets rather in depth here. And I'm glad that you're spending the time with me and letting me walk you through all of this. I mean, you could find these, but this one here really took the cake, so to speak. So I'm going to mute out and let's start it up. Let's see what Mr. Attorney has to say about how he's been keeping secrets for somebody.
He made tape recordings of his killings. And the reason it was given that he did that is that he wanted to be the most famous mass murderer in history. And he wanted to have a recording device of it. Apparently he described in great detail how he killed different people. Mr. Yavitz was refusing to turn over the tapes because he said it was attorney-client privilege.
And they said, well, you got to tell us where he is. You got to know where the bodies are. I said, I can't tell you. So they're very upset about that. They assumed they were dead already. There was no issue in anybody's mind that they were alive. But we don't want them out there decaying in the woods. I said, I don't represent the dead. My wife said I was nasty. I said, I don't represent the dead. They were very upset about that. And they bring me before the judge and they say, we want the tape. And I said, I can't produce the tape. So they threw me in jail. I said, I was in contempt of court. My wife had gone up with me to Georgia, and she's in jail. She invokes the Fifth Amendment against self-incrimination, but she didn't know anything. And now she's in jail. And with your wife in jail, it's a real hassle. I mean, she wasn't very happy. She was pretty upset. So under those circumstances, I said, and I looked at it this way: if I'm turning over a tape to free my wife, then they can't complain that I've done anything. They're extorting me.
On my first LSAT, I scored a 148. I ended up with a 174 and a Harvard Law degree. My experience as a student and as an in-class instructor.
So now, Mr.
Turns out,
Yavitz,
investigators still need those tapes to find more victims.
So Mr. Yavitz has possession of these tapes that Mr. Knowles went to his lawyer and told him that, hey, I'm a mass murderer. So he made light of the situation and then took possession of these tapes that he had recorded of Knowles confessing to all of his crimes that he had committed. Now, Mr. Yavitz is right. There is a client privilege there. And so what they did in Georgia was they decided that since Attorney Yavitz wasn't going to turn over these recordings, that they were going to try to hold his wife accountable for this. So they arrested his wife, held him in contempt of court, and arrested her because he wasn't producing these tapes to get a conviction on this man. Well, there's a few things I wanted to point out here. I'm going to remind you, this is 1974. So a little while ago, we heard that he had ditched these cars, committed these murders. He had not covered his tracks very well. He left paper trails from California, Nevada, Florida, and Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, Connecticut. So he's stealing cars and he's just running rampant. And in 1974, there were no GPS tracking devices. There were no cameras to capture tags and run them to see if they were stolen or not. So now you've got this man going all over God and creation, committing all these crimes. He's bouncing and hopping from one vehicle to another, one home to another. And so there's a lot of chaos going here because technology's not as advanced as it is now. And then we go on, and then we got Yavitz. He's exercising his rights. You got his wife getting locked up in jail. She ain't happy about all that. Being held with contempt of court. She invokes her Fifth Amendment. They still held it against her. And the whole time that they're not willing to stop this fool from doing all this heinous crap, they're withholding evidence on a technicality. So his little crime spree continues. So let's pick it up here to where they're in conflict with this taped diary that his lawyer has.
A hunter stumbled upon PJK's last conquest, and it was horrific. The missing trooper and businessman were left for dead in the woods. What investigators didn't know is that the end was near for PJK.
They have one cuff on each hand, and they're tied to him around the tree, and they're dead. He shot them in the head, top of the head. Noel says that Myers said to him, that's the other victim, make your own luck. That was his last words. Noel's always remembered that.
After they captured him, everywhere he went, they had a driver, law enforcement riding shotgun, 2 law enforcement guys in the back, Noel's in the middle, handcuffed and shackled. Ronnie Angel was a GBI agent in the car. Knowles had agreed to take him to where the pistol was that he used to kill the businessman and the Florida trooper. Knowles was in the back seat, handcuffed.
He got the handcuffs loose, reached over the seat, grabbed Earl Lee's gun, tried to get it out of the holster, shot a hole through the seat. Ron Angel pulled his weapon and shot him. Good riddance. I mean, it's a bad thing to say about somebody, but evil people, good riddance. He won't ever kill anybody else.
And just like that, PJK went from being held captive to dead, his murder spree finally ending with his own death. But his story didn't die with him, at least not right away. Police had his kill tapes, and they'd started combing across the country counting victims. He'd murdered and raped both men and women in Florida, Georgia, Ohio, Nevada, Texas, Virginia, and Connecticut. And he'd talked about it all on tape.
Knowles contended that he killed 33 or 35 people, and he didn't know for sure which. We were able to document 18.
He wanted, when he died, that his crimes be made known and the proceeds would go to his mother. It's his confession. He's describing what he did, who he killed, where he killed them. There's 14 on the tape. There's 2 in Milledgeville, Georgia, and the civilian with the police officer. That's what makes the 18. And it became evidence of the grand jury, and it never left the grand jury. But no one ever got to hear the tape. It doesn't exist. It may physically exist, but it's not playable.
The court had him, and
So now we've got more people murdered, the death of a police officer. He's killed a sheriff. He's killed another cop. He's wound up in Milledgeville, Georgia. Evidence is finally turned over to the grand jury. It never left the grand jury, but no one got to hear the tapes because now they don't exist. So now we're getting into what happened to the tapes. See the issues here? You following me so far? Yeah. And I've got a treat for you at the end of this video after we get through talking about it, because this case went on from July to December of 1974. Now, when you work true crime and as a victim advocate, nowadays these cases drag on forever. This is why it is so important that you take and document everything. You contact law enforcement or the district attorney and you get it filed on record, because if it's on record and you've got a witness, I'm telling you, if something were to ever happen, you got it. You got it. Whether you realize you're saving your own life, you could be saving the life of another just by following due process. Get it on record. So let's continue.
Seemed like to me they had a flood in the basement somewhere, or water got in there and damaged it. I would love to have listened to him to try to understand why he did what he did. You don't kill 16, 17, 18, 29, 30, 35 people. You just don't do it. I'm almost certain there are other victims out there that are related to his activity.
Did you know you've been missing out on saving money with honey?
So, yes, Steve Froggies. Always, always. Yes, 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 yes. I agree with every one of you that said yep. That's why I said I wanted y'all to just take notes on this and kind of let the information soak in a little bit. Because I'm telling you, history absolutely repeats itself. And document. Golly bum, document. So let's pick it up.
Now that I know that he killed over 35 people, men, women, and children, I was thinking, like, what made that person become a murderer, a serial killer? What on God's earth? I researched his background and stuff like later on, it took me years to do that. What would make him turn into a murderer? What would happen in somebody's life that was so horrible that would make them turn into crime? What would make him go berserk and start murdering? What could be so horrific in your life that somebody would do that?
The original confession tapes vanished, but hearing from the Casanova killer himself may be the only way to know. A court-appointed psychologist spoke with Knowles, revealing what goes on inside the mind of a killer.
If I had to live over again, I wouldn't. You wouldn't do one. I wouldn't do it again. It's been that bad. There's no way I'd go through another year of it. I fully intended to be shot before I was arrested.
Paul John Knowles made kill tapes. He recorded the details of his murders. The tapes were handed over to the court and locked away in Macon. According to investigators, both fire and a flood damaged countless court records. PJK's kill tapes are presumed to be lost forever. But there's a second set of tapes, and for the first time ever, they provided a telling look into the mind of a serial killer in his own words.
What's the worst thing that ever happened to you in your life? Worst? I was born. You sure?
The tapes are not the only way to get inside the mind of this serial killer. PJK left behind letters, notes, drawings, and accounts from the women he loved. Among those women he let inside his mind was a British journalist who he picked up in an Atlanta hotel bar.
Okay, here we go. Put a 1 in the chat if you're picking up on a significant pattern. I think we're all seeing this. So now, today, in today's world, we've got people documenting, and this relates to a lot of things. We got people documenting their life stories on social media, YouTube, chat rooms. They're going on and on and on with what a lot of people think is just gibberish. No, it's not gibberish. It's not gibberish, I promise you. This is the way their brains function. Exactly, this is how their brains function. Because remember in the beginning of this, he said that he wanted the copywriter. He wanted the copywriter to write a book. He wanted to be famous. He wanted to be famous, but he didn't want the notoriety. So let's go ahead. Now he's met a publisher, a writer. Okay, now their interest is people that can get their story out there. Get their story out there. I want everybody to know what I've done, but not till after I've done it. So let's pick it up.
Andy Fox was a different kind of prey for PJK, the kind who might be able to offer the one thing he desired more than all the others: fame. In her book, Natural Born Killer, she writes about life on the road with PJK. Sandy Fox passed away in 2005, but through narration, her journey is brought back to life.
I will never know for certain whether he would have killed me that last night, the one when I said goodbye so determinedly. His pattern was to kill approximately every 10 days, and he fulfilled it at the weekend. I learned a little of Knowles' life. He had been institutionalized from the age of 8. A stolen bicycle had led him to a lifetime of foster homes, reformatories, and prison. A great life for a child, a life of uniforms, discipline, and few possessions. And like many others going through the system, he learned to live the harsh way, to life, cheat, and steal. And all the while to dream of glory, easy money, and escape.
You mean from the time you're born, you've been that bad? You're just lying. Well, I look at it like this. I was a hell of a lot better before I was born than I am. Or have been since I was born. Well, let me ask you something else. What's the best thing that ever happened to you in your life? Nothing. Nothing good comes from it. I'm a criminal. I've been a criminal since I was a kid. You really are saying that you believe you have a criminal mind? Well, it's been through the roof. My life has been more involved in the criminal sense than with the empathy. I realized there was a lack of, maybe not a lack of love, but a lack of caring with him. So I had no doubt that they loved me, but they just didn't give me that. Well, if you love somebody, how can you not give them that? It's possible. It's possible. Well, perhaps they did give a damn, but they just didn't know how to show it.
Most of PJK's
Notice that too, huh, Kinsuji? That slow, low monotone. No, he's not giving any excuses. He's being pretty well forward with everything. I mean, it goes to show that there's very few people he trusts. Yes, exactly, flies. The faces of Eve, huh? Hi, Truth and Justice. Yep. All right. So now we've kind of get from the psychologist recordings. So now he's talking about he starts in and talking about his childhood experiences, and it goes on from there. So now let's see who can share more about his childhood. So let's go forward.
Of PJK's family passed away a long time ago, but his brother Clifton is willing to provide a look into the childhood of a serial killer.
We were so poor, there was 7 of us living in 3 rooms. It was like a great room where Mom and Dad slept in. A little bedroom and a kitchen. We had an outhouse. You know, when you're a child and certain horrendous things happen to you, you tend to block them out. In today's climate, we would all been taken out of the home. We would all been taken out of the home and probably fostered out. There was a lot of physical abuse. My father would call them, he called them whipping. I call them beatings myself. You know, when you leave black and blue marks on a kid from a belt, that's a beating. And the old man was beating Paul with his fist. And he's about to beat him to death. He got well enough, he ran away again.
3 days of party. You know, just rode around town, went to the shooting galleries, penny arcades, and this and that. Just whatever. Didn't go home. Sleeping in the room. Then they called me. And they sent me home. Then the next day I was in school, and they called me across the street to the police station. They started talking to me, and I admitted, you know, me. And that was when they sent me out to
Paul John Knowles was sent away to the infamous Dozier School for Boys. A 2013 investigation revealed that at least 50 bodies were buried on the grounds of the school. To date, more than 500 former students have alleged brutal beatings and a culture of abuse.
Florida School for Boys, which is the Dozier School for, I call it Florida School for Boys. And he stayed in and out of there until he got old enough to go to Rayford, the Florida State Prison. I call it Rayford, but it was Florida State Prison. And it was the same thing. Never stayed out over 6 months. It institutionalized him instead of reforming him. He didn't go in a killer. He was just a wayward soul that got tired of the beatings when he was a youngin' and got away from it the best way he knew how at the time. And one thing led to another, one thing led to another. The state of Florida has a hand in this too. They will deny it to hell won't have it. But the state of Florida has a responsibility in this too.
He had been in prison in Rayford. And I had been retained by his girlfriend, Angela Kovac, also known as Samuels, to get him a parole. She was a small.
Okay, so we've heard now that he grew up in a family of 7 kids, maybe a 3, 4, maybe 5-room house. Grew up poor, a lot of abuse in the home. His own brother said that in today's world, they would have been separated and placed in foster care. So he winds up going to the Dozier School for Boys. And from there, it progressed with him committing crimes that he finally wound up at Rayford Prison in Florida. So now we're getting into how he meets the woman of his dreams through correspondence in prison. And when I first started this video or this broadcast, I kind of lightly touched on Miss Kovac. or Kovic, and let's hear her story and how Mr. Knowles became what he became.
Short woman, and I made a note somewhere that she wasn't very attractive, and she was older than him, and I couldn't understand the appeal, except that she had money. Then she was a meal ticket out.
3 women had loved Paul John Knowles. His mother, for whom he had such a passionate love that he went out and killed to make her rich, and for whom, finally, I suppose, he gave his own life. Jackie Knight, who knew his faults and weaknesses, but stood by him staunchly, and Angela Kovic, his last chance.
He was going to go to California. That was the basis of the parole. And Mary Angela Kovac, she was still married. So we had to wait till she got divorced.
He was released from Florida Penitentiary in like the spring of 1974. And he went to California to visit the young lady out there, and they were going to be married. And when he got out there, she had talked with a psychic or something and told him that there was this bad guy was going to come into her future, and she broke off whatever it was, and he came east and started killing folks.
Came back to Georgia, came back to Florida, and that's when he started on his kidnapping, raping, murder spree. Well, it seems like something triggered him to start.
Check this out. I'm going to show you how I afforded this car.
Something triggered him. Scorned relationships. Yep, it does sound familiar, don't it? Yep, and it has been turned into a movie. It's all been a movie. Shall we continue?
His attempts at love had all failed him. His mother, Bonnie Knowles, who he adored, had allowed his father to send him away. The loves conducted by Mary and Angela were both childish and swaggering, the letters filled with sexual boasts. "There are only 2 things I like to do on a rainy day," he had written Angela, "sleep and make love. And I very seldom get sleepy." The lined paper was smothered with kisses, the envelopes with crayon drawings. Nothing came out of these relationships because they were based on fantasy.
He called me to pick him up at the airport. He told me one little thing what happened out there, that the lady out there was seeing a black man. And Paul like to beat him half to death. That's what he told me. And evidently, and Paul was a little bit of a racist too. And so that's why he beat the black guy about half to death. He was thinking that was going to be a relationship for him. And he got out there and he found out that it wasn't what he thought it was. And I think that that's what set it off.
His failed relationship with Angela Kovic started the murder spree, but over the course of the next 5 months, Paul John Knowles kept returning to the same woman, former girlfriend Jackie Knight. He'd stop and stay at her house in between killings. Jackie claims she had no idea that's where he'd go.
He was around my children, babysitting my children while I'd go shopping or have to go pay bills. He would do this. He would babysit my kids. You think if I'd known he was killing these people, I'd let my kids be involved? It was an embarrassment to me and my family that I could have been so naive to have gotten involved in someone like this. And I'm just afraid, they probably thought I might have been involved in some way or knew something in some way. I didn't know anything that was going down in Macon or anywhere. I know he'd be gone for 2 weeks, he'd come back. He'd stay 3 or 4 days, he'd be gone again. He'd sleep on my couch. He would see to it that the kids had Christmas. He would see to it that they was well taken care of when it come to school. He took those kids as his own.
So he embarked on his journey, a 20,000-mile round trip on which he saw the vast grandeur of America. Perhaps we wondered why, when there was so much, he had so little. After his
So these women trusted him. Everybody trusted him. Until they couldn't trust him no more. Stepfather of the year. Adores children. Miss Knight didn't think he would ever harm a child ever. Let's see what it led into.
capture, he told his lawyer he had let his victims know their fate beforehand. He charmed them into acquiescence by telling them he must tie them up in order to get away. I never wanted to hurt them, he said. He could not understand their terror, and when killed them, he felt no remorse.
If you could change your life from the point you're at right now, where would you go back to make the change? Well, actually, if I had to live over again, I wouldn't. You wouldn't do it. I wouldn't live it again. It's been that bad. There's no way I'd go through another year of it. I never did decide to go back. I decided I wasn't going back. It's just chance of fate that I am. I had no intention of living. How do you mean that? I fully intended to be shot before I was listening.
I think in his heart, he knew what was the end result, what was going to happen. And he was trying to set mom and daddy up with a book deal or something and give them the rights, for anything that happened with the tapes.
Maybe that he just wanted to die. But on the other hand, he was enjoying his celebrity status. Women liked him now. He was like somewhat of a hero, in a strange sort of way. He wanted, when he died, that his crimes be made known and that his story be made known and that there be a book or a movie or something done. And the proceeds would go to his mother. I didn't tell him that a murderer or a criminal like that cannot profit from his crimes. That eventually, if he had any victims, they'd sue the estate, and the estate would be wiped out. There wouldn't be any profit to it.
So this attorney just said that if any of his victims sued before he died, that the estate would be wiped out. I don't know about y'all, but anything that I've ever done to make money off of it, being poor, if his family was so poor, how did he even have an estate? If he's on the go all the time, how does he have an estate? If his lawyer is protecting those tapes and he's out on a crime spree and he's been locked up in and out of juvie and prison back and forth until he decides to go on a rampage, there is no estate. This man, I don't know about him now. I'm just saying, I don't know about him. So let's just go on and keep talking about this estate. I'm thinking a figment of his imagination, maybe, that with all this grandiose opportunity, he's got this magnificent imagination of a scene out of Jack and the Beanstalk? I don't know. That's just my opinion.
Paul John Knowles was as much a victim as any of the 18 people killed, with a compassion that in no way diminishes my sorrow for the dead and my sympathy for those who mourn them. May his poor, demented soul rest in peace.
They took him out and killed him. They took him out and killed him.
Do you think they plan to do that?
We'll let God be the judge of that. We'll let God be the judge of that. It took a while to get over it, but eventually it just faded away. Always knew, I tell my wife, that this day would come. This day would come. Something just told me that it would.
What about this day?
Interview. That somebody would have some questions.
Is there anything you've been waiting to say on this day?
The two girls, he didn't do it.
PJ.
Okay, so now we've got a brother who is questioning intent and trying to say that law enforcement has committed a murder themselves on a brother that was viciously murdering men, women, and children. With all due respect to anyone's family, this is what makes true crime bittersweet. You can scream coulda, shoulda, wouldas all day long, but the documents and the reports and the crime scene investigators, even in 1974, were very skilled. Whew. And yet you got a better, I don't know if I could say a better, you got the same preservation of integrity on both sides, even as a family member and as a law enforcement agent. So law enforcement ruled it that Mr. Knowles made an attempted escape, grabbed the weapon from the sheriff from Georgia that was extraditing him, and the Florida State Police officer that was in the vehicle shot and killed the man. I think that's how that works. I'll be corrected if it's not. Exactly right, Petey. Murder is taking the life of innocent. Mr. Knowles was not innocent. So, regardless of how this played out, in my opinion, this was a justifiable action based on who and what we're dealing with here, just by what's being presented in this video. So, that's my opinion. And my opinion has been known to change before. It's just part of life. So let's continue and let's get into what other crimes that he committed before he was captured.
PK's brother is talking about the Anderson sisters. Those two little girls are believed to be PJK's second and third victims, but it's not a clear-cut case.
And when the girls went missing, it just totally changed everything. Millette liked to play with baby dolls. If you've seen her, she always has a baby doll. And that was a book reader. We call her the bookworm because you see her, she had a book. Everybody said Paul Knowles was in the area at the time the girls went missing. About 5-6 years later, we put the tombstone down there at the cemetery. I just knew they was gone and they never come back.
Instead of a final resting place, these gravestones mark heartache and uncertainty. The girls' bodies were never found, despite court documents that indicated PJK offered specific details about them on his infamous kill tapes.
He gave a direction how to find them. Something about two palm trees supposed to be connected like a heart. And they went out and searched it. They never did find the area or nothing. I don't think we'll ever get closure out of it. Because it's been too long. And if anybody really knew anything, I would think by this time it would bother them so much on their mind that they would come out and say something. And I just don't think there's nobody out there that knows. I think it's time to let it go.
This is it.
Ooh. Not only that, not only the Green Mile, I can think of a few things that have been reported in the last few years. Got a lot of families out there with missing children. Got a lot of families out there with missing loved ones. And the law knows. And the law knows exactly. With all the technology, the security cameras, the surveillance videos, the bragging, the boasting, all of the training that law enforcement has, all of the training that upper law enforcement levels have. These people can be found if they would just do it. You've got families needing closure. They just want an opportunity for closure. And the longer it seems like they drag their feet, the more victims it produces. Paul John Knowles, he left, no, but I'll have to check that out, Cushy. Knowles left breadcrumbs, and this is 1974. Today's 2022. When something like this happened back in the 60s, even the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, even the 80s, there were still answers. And there's not answers anymore. But you can't solve a murder if there's no body. You can't solve a kidnapping if there's no body. Where's the integrity? Where's the preservation of integrity in everyday people putting their faith and hope into people that are supposed to have training and accessibility to technologies? Where's their integrity?
The Anderson sisters are on the list of at least 18 victims murdered by Paul John Knowles, but it's clear that list is probably incomplete. Debbie Griffin disappeared while hitchhiking in Bibb County during PJK's killing spree in October 1974. This FBI file names him as a suspect, but the investigation has never been closed. These images from the case file show evidence of her grisly death. Her body tossed in the woods, undiscovered until nearly a year later. But, like others, she's never been officially added to his victims list.
There's a lot of cold cases that they're trying to solve. They just solved one, say a couple of years ago in Houston County, that the body was found several years after all this took place in 74. And through the tapes or transcripts, they were able to identify that he did, in fact, kill that one.
Well, I'll tell you what I have at home. I have a picture that was blowed up of him, and I have it out in my backyard. And I take my BB gun and I shoot him. It's just a picture.
Betty Weisskopf's daughter, Ima Jean, is the most recent victim officially added to Paul John Knowles' kill list more than 35 years after her death.
Ima liked to go swimming. She liked to boys. She liked to go to the sand pit. Normal things most 13-year-olds like. So she had left to go to the sand pit. I worked and her stepdad worked. So we weren't home during the day. Well, I figured that she was so unhappy that maybe she just decided to go live her own life. But we did searches and things for Social Security, never could find anything. But I had never dreamed that she was killed by a serial killer. It surprised the hell out of me, because I wasn't expecting it. Just took the sales right out.
A tip from a former family friend prompted investigators to ask the family for DNA samples in 2011. Their DNA matched the unidentified body of PJK's fifth victim. It was Ima.
Some hikers found her, but they never connected anybody with anything until they did that DNA.
She disappeared in 1974, and you didn't know Paul John Knowles was involved until 2011.
That's right.
All those years.
No.
He had said it on the tape.
Mm-hmm.
No one told you that
Nope.
he had said that on the tape. They didn't realize.
Nope.
That's because the Casanova killer got her name wrong. He called Ima Alma on the kill tape.
The detective said, I'm going to tell you that we found your sister and that she was deceased. I can tell you what happened, how we know how it happened, and who did it. They had a story from Knowles that he had confessed to doing it. They had it on audio. He had said that he went back in the woods like 10 days later and the wild animals had drug her body, and he took her jawbone and buried it somewhere else. And that jawbone was not in those bones. The jawbone was missing. At the time, it was like I was numb. I mean, it hurt. I cried because in my heart, she was dead. But to hear it and really be confirmed, like hit you really hard, you know?
To me, I don't care if he rots in hell myself. For 6 months, he went up and down Georgia and Florida. And he was called the Casanova killer because he had a way to worm his way into someone's life and they wouldn't think anything about him. I took it a lot harder because when you sit around and think about things, then you think, well, if I hadn't have been working, maybe I would have been home and then maybe it wouldn't have happened. So you start to put the blame on yourself, which you don't really know if that would have done it or not.
40 years, and finally, Imogene's family has answers. But if PJK killed as many people as he claimed, more than a dozen other families are still waiting.
You just got to be strong and keep on going, and you don't give up. What you do is you put it out in the papers every now and then. You print up posters and put them posters out there, even if it's been 10, 15 years ago. Because if you can get it out, maybe somebody might click to say, well, hey, yeah, I know about this. Sometimes you got to refresh people's memories.
When you hear the name Paul John Knowles, what goes through your mind?
How many people have still not been identified as victims of Knowles? Serial.
Wow, that was a little bit heartbreaking, wasn't it? This woman and her sister lost hope, gave up completely. And the whole time, the confession of her daughter's murder was there. Just got the name wrong. Just got the name wrong. Sad situation that they went all those years not knowing what happened to the child, and a 13-year-old girl. All right. Well, I'll let y'all finish up with the last few minutes of this video. I'm going to take a quick break, and then I'm going to dive into something else with you real quick. So here we go. Let's finish it up.
Serial killers, they kill a lot of people. You find some you don't. You heard the old saying, leopards don't change their spots, killers don't change their MOs. I'm really surprised that he, quote, has not gotten the notoriety that Ted Bundy got, Charles Manson got. He wanted notoriety, but he never got it. I'm almost certain there are other victims out there that are related to his activity. How many, I don't know. The people in Florida are working on a cold case that they're trying to link to him. And I'm sure there are bodies in the woods somewhere that he left there. Again, he was just probably the most brutal person I ever dealt with. Just about everywhere he went, he left a body.
Credit card receipts show Paul John Knowles crisscrossing the country over the course of 5 months. He made more than 100 stops through at least 40 states. So what happened to the other victims? Maybe there are only 18, but there are also a lot of unsolved murders along that path. Law enforcement agencies in at least 3 states tell us they're now re-examining cases after we asked about potential connections to Paul John Knowles. The so-called Casanova wasn't really a notorious lover. Instead, he was just a thief, a liar, and a cold-blooded killer. He may be long dead, but the investigation into his murderous spree now has new life.
He was a con artist. He could con you out of your wallet, your watch, your car. He was a smooth talker. Some people identified him as a ladies' man. He was brutal. He was mean. He was vicious. He's just, thank God we don't have a whole lot of them around. There are serial killers out there, but I don't know what makes a person do what he did.
I had a dog. It was a nice dog. It was sort of a mutt, but it was a nice, pleasant dog. One day, the dog kills a duck, and then it kills a second duck. The ducks trusted the dogs. Weren't worried about him. They didn't run from them, and he started killing them. What he had become was a mad dog. And I think that's basically what Knowles became. He became a mad dog where he just killed people.
He just became a mad dog.
Watch this. I can show you how to get the biggest discounts online when you shop at major retailers.
He just became a mad dog. Y'all got any questions or comments? I just ask that you be careful with them. Because God only knows what can result in all this nonsense. That's really very serious nonsense. I'm going to drop my link again if somebody wants to come up and talk for a minute. I'm trying to catch up on comments. That poor woman blaming herself. This is what happens. They start blaming themselves. It's what mamas do. They blame themselves. If their kids get sick, they go full mode investigator. What caused my kid to be sick? What was happening? The reason my kid got hurt. And then you have something traumatic that occurs, like a kidnapping or a murder or something like that. Your mind goes straight into overload. Hi, Country Christian. Well, yes, I'm glad you benefited from me sharing this. I really did, because this is a lot of what highly paid profilers do. This is what you do. And we don't get paid for it. They do. They make all the good money, and hell, they're still dragging their feet. That's my beef about the whole damn thing. How much more public can you get with this shit? People need to wake up. It does make you wonder. Makes you wonder about a lot of things. It makes me pissed off. And it takes a lot to piss me off. I'm very easily agitated, but it takes a lot to piss me off. It's exactly right. All these serial killers all have the same personality traits. And still, the police can't and won't look into it. And even if they are looking into it, there's so much fookery going on. There's so damn much wishy-washy bullshit going on. Exactly right. Why are they slacking? Kids coming up missing and dead, people coming up missing and dead is not a fucking conspiracy. It's actually happening. There's victims being created. I believe you. I believe you 100%, because I'm going to tell you something. Some of my best resources have been the ones that went eyeballs deep into shit and made good names and reputations for themselves and being good at what they do. I'm tired of the mumbo jumbo. I don't know if our justice system is for the criminal or if they're for themselves. I tell you what, I I could get on a soapbox all day long when it comes to politics being involved. This is morally and ethical deep. Scam after scam. Turning blind eyes to obvious and apparent situations of great concern. You don't have to put your kids in a glass bubble, but at least don't turn a blind eye if you got snakes around the bubble. I mean, how far? Exactly right. It is the victim who stands in court and defends himself, not the perpetrator. You're right, it is. Well, it's just like Miss Barbara said on the video. That whenever they came to her rescue and her aid, hell, they arrested her. She was treated like a criminal. It's not like, oh, I'm sorry you cut your finger. You shouldn't have been playing with a knife. Really? 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 I know that sounded way out there and far-fetched, but really? I don't know about y'all, but I want that man that was his lawyer to represent me. Hell, if I'm going to go out here and commit murder sprees, I'm not. But I mean, that's... And then you wonder, damn it. It's a double-edged sword's what it is. People, just remember that your home, your vehicle, your place of business, are your sanctuaries. And if you look up the term sanctuary means a safe haven. It's just a whole bunch of mess. So does anybody have any questions? Do I need to recap on anything? That's what I was going to do. Bear with me for a minute. I was going to bring up something. For the month of October, at the end of my show, I was going to try and capture something for y'all. Okay, I'm going to mute out. I'm going to just leave the screen open. I want y'all to kind of get a feel of what I'm sharing here. Please put a 1 in the chat if you can see and read the screen. This is Keisla Noel Roberts. She went missing in January 2022, 2 days after Caleb Smith went missing. Caleb Smith went missing. Several days later, his body was found in a wooded area that had been burned. But his body was not burned, only the area they found him in. Keislan is still missing. 2 individuals' young lives were disrupted from Resaca, Georgia, within days of each other. Keislan still needs to be found. She just missed another birthday. You can find other articles about Miss Roberts by just simply Google searching her. And on YouTube, there are several videos. So please get the word out for these missing people. Please. Okay. So, last call for questions. And then I'm going to play some jams. Oh, that's what I was going to do. This is my email. And my email is also in my about information. Please, before the end of the day, take time to pray for all the victims and the victims' families and all of those in need of prayer. And folks, if there's no questions, reach out and touch me if you can. If you can't, do it softly. I prefer it that way. And let's close this out with a couple of good little tunes while we exit out. Please hit that like button. I'd love to be able to grow my channel before I become monetized and we can't have these little jam sessions. So I'm going to let the chat run for a few minutes as we jam out. And you're probably going to hear me wailing in the background, so enjoy. And Petey, we're going to finish this up for you.
in my life. So let me love you. Feel you up inside. I want to hold you back. So let me squeeze you. Don't think nothing. I'll get down on my knees for you, babe. I ain't much told, Casanova. Me and Romeo ain't never been friends. Can't you see how much I really love you? I sing it to you time and time again. Oh, Casanova, Casanova, oh, Casanova, Casanova. Time I wanna see you. I can't find the words to tell you so. I love, I love, I love, I love, I love you, babe. And I just got to let you know how much I need you. Show you what you mean to me each day, babe. So let me hold you. Keep it safe and warm. I'll be your sweetheart, babe. Baby, baby, baby. And when I told you, girl, I'm an average guy. That's how I really feel. 'Cause I can't let you go. I need you, I want you to stay right here with me. Baby, I never knew love. Until you came along. Oh, Casanova. I just want to say, Casanova. I can't let it get away. Oh, Casanova. I just want to do. I know Casanova. I just wanna be with you. Listen, baby. I wanna hold you squeeze you too. I wanna make sweet love to you. Casanova. I wanna feel alone. Never let you go. No, Casanova. I just wanna be your lover, baby. Welcome to the world of absolute cocktails.
Oh, Lord, don't be teasing me like that. Showing me a bottle of Absolute. Don't be doing that now. Come on now. He's on his way home to Candletop. Been 2 weeks gone and he thought he'd stop at Webb's and have him a drink before he went home to her. Andy Wolo said hello. He said hi, what's doing? Whoa, said sit down, I got some bad news, it's gonna hurt. So I'm your best friend and you know that's right. But your young bride ain't home tonight. Since you've been gone, she's been seeing that Amos boy Seth. Now he got mad and he saw red. And he said, boy, don't you lose your head, 'cause to tell you the truth, I've been with her myself. That's the night that the lights went out in Georgia. That's the night that they hung an innocent man. So don't trust your soul to no backwoods southern lawyer. He's got bloodstains on his hands. He left the bar, walking on home 'cause he didn't live far, you see, and he didn't have many friends, and he just lost him one. Must have left town, but they went home and finally found the only thing that he had left him, and that was a gun. He went off to Andy's house, slipping through the backwoods quiet as a mouse. Came upon some tracks too small for Andy to make. Screen at the back porch door, and he saw Andy lying on the floor in a puddle of blood, and he started to shake. Guilty on a make-believe trial. The sheriff on the back with a smile said, supper's waiting at home and I gotta get to it. No backwoods Southern lawyer. Cause the judge in the town's got bloodstains on his hands. My brother before I say the tracks he saw went on his way to Andy's house and back that night of mine. And his cheating wife never left town. That's one body that'll never. You want to hear fancy? Okay, give me just a second. That's the night that the lights went out in Georgia. That's the night that they hung an innocent man. Don't trust your soul to no backwoods Southern lawyer. Cause the judge in the town's got bloodstains on his hands. That's the night that the lights went out in Georgia. That's the night that they hung an innocent man. But don't trust yourself to no backwoods Southern lawyer. Cause the judge in the town's got bloodstains on his hands. Okay, it's coming up. Please don't strike my channel for this because I'm just having fun. Okay.
One day, my doctor talked to me about Dupixent.
Really? I don't want to hear about that visit with your doctor. I'm sorry. You don't sound like no choke rooster. I remember it all very well. Looking back, it was the summer I turned 18. We lived in a one-room rundown shack on the outskirts of New Orleans. We didn't have money for food or rent. To say the least, we were hard-pressed. Then Mama spent every last penny we had to buy me a dancing dress. Well, Mama washed and combed and curled my hair, then she painted my eyes and lips. Then I stepped into a satin dancing dress that had a split from the side clean up to my hip. It was red velvet trimming and it fit me good. Sitting back from the looking glass, there stood a woman where a half-grown kid had stood. Said, here's your one chance, fancy, don't let me down. Here's your one chance, fancy, don't let me down. I dabbed a little bit of perfume on my neck, then she kissed my cheek. Then I saw the tears welling up in her troubled eyes as she started to speak. She looked at her pitiful shack and then she took to me and took a ragged breath. She said, your pa's run off and I'm real sick and the baby's gonna starve to death. She handed me a heart-shaped locket that said that thine own self be true. And I shivered as I watched her crouch across the toe of my high-heel shoe. It sounded like somebody else that was talking, asking, Mama, what do I do? She said, just be nice to the gentleman, fancy, they'll be nice to you. Said, here's your one chance, fancy, don't let me down. Here's your one chance, fancy, don't let me down. Lord, forgive me for what I do. Well, if you want out, well, it's up to you. Now, don't let me down, hon. Your mama's gonna move you uptown. It was the last time I saw my mama that left that rickety shack. The welfare people came and took the baby. Mama died and I ain't been back. But the wheels of fate had started to turn, and for me there was no way out. It wasn't very long till I knew exactly what my mama had been talking about. I knew what I had to do, and I made myself this solemn vow. I was gonna be a lady someday, though I didn't know when or how. But I couldn't see spending the rest of my life with my head hung down in shame. You know, I might have been born just plain white trash, but fancy was my name. Here's your one chance, fancy, don't let me down. Here's your one chance, fancy, don't let me down. Heavenly man took me in off the streets. 1 week later, I was pouring his tea in a 5-room hotel suite. I was charmed a king, a congressman, and an occasional aristocrat. Then in a Georgia mansion in an elegant New Orleans. Boy, I screwed that up. Can't smoke a cigarette and sing at the same time. Here's your one chance, fancy, don't let me down. Oh, here's your one chance, fancy, don't let me down. Forgive me for what I do. Well, if you want out, well, it's up to you. Now, don't let me down, hon. Your mama's gonna move you uptown. Oh, you're more than welcome, Sister Kelly. Thank you for coming in. Flies, you're more than welcome. You too. Trying to think of a good one to go out with. And I ain't talking about men neither. Here's a good one. Oh, you're welcome, traders. You can call me here a little bit. I'm winding it down. After we get through the concealing. Oh, speaking of concealing, contour, and correcting, you still need to do my makeup, girl. this badge from me. I can't use it anymore. It's getting dark, too dark to see. Feel I'm knocking on heaven's door. Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door. Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door. Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door. What on the strings? I forgot about it. Hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. I'ma put my guns in the ground. I can't shoot them anymore. The cobra cloud is coming around, and I feel I'm knocking on heaven's door. Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door. Here we go. Straight down, and that river runs deep. The mountains get steep, and the voices getting too loud. All these feelings I bury, looking like a cemetery. They coming back from the grave, calling out my name. Better say I am happy. You don't know how deep it goes until it's getting you slowly. That's all you got to let it go. I got blood on the strings, blood on the strings, blood on the strings. They're playing till my fingers don't bleed. Got blood on the strings, blood on the strings, blood on the strings. God knows, still afraid. I'm channeling my song house, cause I gotta let these blues out. So I reach for the yes, make the holler back. Ooh, Lord, I'm feeling good now. Yeah, falling on them steel strings, and it's looking like a crime scene. With my fingers going numb, look at all of this blood. Better call the police. You don't know how deep it goes until it's getting you slowly. So you got to let it go. I got blood on the strings, Gonna close out with my feel-good song. Thanks everyone for joining me that's still in here. Oh, the fear I hear you. Oh, the fear I hear you. What will all the fear I hear you. What will all the fear I hear you. All the fear I hear you. What the little lead-I-do, all the fear I hear you. I didn't know I spoke another language, did you? Thanks everyone for coming.